Royal family stunned as Edward's lawyers confirm he inherits what Charles denied for years. It was March 2026, midnight in the state vault. King Charles's inner circle stared at the documents in disbelief. Prince Edward's lawyers had just fired the ultimate legal salvo. Bagshot Park, the sprawling 51-acre estate with its 120-room mansion, was safe. The Anthem Tiara, that dazzling symbol of Sophie's place in the family, was hers forever. What Charles had tried to claw back, Edward had defended with ironclad proof from the late Queen herself. The palace was in absolute turmoil. Camilla stood frozen, her carefully laid plans shattered. But the real story isn't the victory, it's the secret letters and witnessed deeds from Queen Elizabeth that exposed a raw power struggle at the heart of the monarchy. Here's where it gets ugly. For months, behind the gilded doors of Buckingham Palace, a Cold War had been brewing. King Charles, obsessed with his modernization agenda and ruthless cost-cutting, set his sights on Prince Edward's beloved Bagshot Park. Leaked internal memos, dated January 12, 2026, revealed the King's team quietly initiating a lease review. They wanted the estate back. Never mind that Edward and Sophie had poured millions of their own money into its restoration over 2 decades. Never mind the formal 150-year lease agreements signed under the late Queen's hand. But Edward wasn't about to roll over. At 3 a.m. on a freezing February morning, Edward's legal team delivered the first bombshell to the King's private secretaries. A thick dossier, stamped with the royal seal, contained copies of private letters Queen Elizabeth II had written in 2019, witnessed by Prince Philip himself just months before his passing. Those letters explicitly tied the Dukedom of Edinburgh to Bagshot Park. "This estate shall remain the secure home of my son Edward and his family," the Queen had written in her unmistakable hand. Section 4 of the accompanying deed left no room for interpretation. It was ironclad, a personal commitment from a monarch who valued stability above all. The palace officials were scrambling. Emergency meetings were called in the blue drawing room. Camilla's office, sources confirm, pushed hardest. An internal audit report, uncovered by Edward's lawyers, showed her team classifying the Anthem Tiara as crown property. That breathtaking piece, commissioned by Queen Elizabeth II specifically for Sophie's wedding day, was suddenly under threat. "It belongs to the institution," one memo allegedly stated. Greed disguised as duty, a blatant attempt to strip Sophie of what was rightfully hers. Enter Princess Anne, the steel-spined royal who would not stay silent. On February 28th, in a private confrontation at Windsor Castle that insiders describe as explosive, Anne went straight for the king. Face to face, no courtiers softening the blow. She slammed the table with the original documents. "Mother's wishes are not suggestions, Charles," she reportedly declared. "If we start tearing up her signed deeds now, what's left of this family? What's left of your own authority when your time comes?" Anne's words cut deep. She positioned herself as the guardian of the late Queen's legacy, standing shoulder to shoulder with Edward and Sophie. The traditionalists versus the modernizers. Duty versus deception. The receipts were devastating. Edward's financial records, audited by the National Audit Office and presented in a sealed legal brief on March 5th, proved he had invested over $4.2 million of private funds into Bagshot Park. Restoration of the historic gardens, repairs to the main residence, security upgrades, all documented with bank transfers, contractor invoices, and maintenance logs spanning 25 years. Charles's team had no counter. The modernization push hit a brick wall of cold, hard evidence. But the tension reached boiling point on March 15th. Behind closed doors at Clarence House, a high-security council meeting turned heated. Leaked minutes, obtained by this investigation, show Camilla pressing for an ultimatum. "The monarchy must evolve," she allegedly argued. These properties represent outdated commitments. Yet Edward's lawyers stood firm. They produced a second bombshell, a 2022 codicil to the Queen's private papers, reconfirming the tiara as a personal gift to Sophie, complete with a handwritten note. For my dear Sophie to wear with pride as Duchess. Philip had countersigned it. The spirit of the late Queen hovered over every page. The palace was humiliated. Shockwaves rippled through the corridors. Senior aides who had backed Charles's cost-cutting drive now whispered in disbelief. How could the king challenge his own mother's explicit instructions? It wasn't just about one estate or one tiara. It was about the very foundation of royal authority. If signed commitments from Queen Elizabeth could be overturned on a whim, what precedent did that set for the future? Princess Anne refused to let it slide. In a rare show of unity, she rallied support from within the family. Sources close to Kensington Palace confirm that Prince William and Catherine were quietly briefed and expressed private alignment with Edward's position. The lines were drawn. On one side, Charles and Camilla's inner circle, pushing aggressive reforms. On the other, the traditionalist faction, Anne, Edward, Sophie, defending the late Queen's legacy, and Diana's enduring emphasis on authenticity and stability. The fallout was swift and brutal. By March 20th, Edward's team had prepared court papers, though they hoped to avoid public spectacle. The threat alone forced movement. Palace lawyers, facing the irrefutable dossier, began backpedaling. Internal emails from March 22nd reveal frantic attempts to contain the damage. Concession may be necessary to preserve unity, one senior advisor wrote. Then came March 25th, the day the monarchy blinked. In a formal written communication delivered at 11 a.m., the palace conceded completely. The Anthem Tiara would remain Sophie's private property. The review of Bagshot Park's lease was abandoned indefinitely. Edward had won. His lawyers' meticulous documentation, those private letters, the witnessed deeds, the financial proofs, had prevailed over Charles's denial. But victory came at a devastating personal cost. The relationship between King Charles and Prince Edward, once warm, is now formal and distant. Public appearances maintain the facade of unity, but behind the scenes, the trust is eroded. Insiders report that phone calls are brief, meetings are stiff, and meaningful conversations have all but ceased. Camilla's influence, once growing, now faces open skepticism from the traditionalist wing. This battle has fractured the monarchy into two distinct factions, Charles and Camilla at the center of one, Anne, Edward, Sophie, and reportedly William and Catherine, forming a more grounded, legacy-focused alliance. The late Queen's memory has become the battlefield. Edward's defense wasn't rebellion. It was loyalty to his mother's wishes, to the promises made, to the stability she fought so hard to preserve. And here's the precedent that changes everything. No future monarch can arbitrarily override documented commitments from previous sovereigns. The king's power has limits, real, legal, enforceable limits. Edward's victory has rewritten the rules from within. Yet as we speak, the lawyers are already preparing for the next phase. Whispers of further property reviews targeting other minor royals are circulating in the corridors. Camilla's office has not gone quiet. Sources indicate new audits are being quietly commissioned. The traditionalists are digging in deeper. This is far from over. The royal family stands stunned. The public sees smiling photos, but the private war rages on. Prince Edward has drawn a line in the sand, backed by his mother's unassailable word. What Charles denied for years, Edward has now secured forever. But at what long-term cost to the institution? The late Queen's legacy hangs in the balance. Diana's spirit of honesty and fairness watches from the shadows. One wrong move now, and the entire house of cards could come tumbling down. And the next chapter is already being written behind those closed palace doors. The monarchy will never be the same again.